going to talk a little bit about succulents, and we'll all figure out just exactly what a succulent is. But more of my talk is going to be on being water-wise, or water-wise, water-free, low-water plants, drought-resistant, xeriscape. Whatever you want to call it, it's all in what's in a name. We're going to find out a couple more times in my talk about what is a name. But the whole goal of this talk is to show you that you can have a lot of beauty with not very much water. Xeriscape is a great term. Some people don't like it, but some people also call it xeriscape. And it is not xeriscape. It is not rocks with a couple of cactus stuck into them on a flat plane. That's not what it is. So I hope I can show you some really beautiful, beautiful plants. Some of the goals that we can have here with all of this, one, of course, is to reduce the use of our water. If anyone has just moved here, I'll give you new information. San Diego is a desert. We have no water. All of us who would much prefer having a tropical garden with all of the beautiful tropicals, it's just really hard to have here in San Diego. Having a xeriscape garden does improve the soil because first you don't need nearly as much fertilizer. Things will break down when you have the mulch. I'm going to limit turf. I have to tell you, I'm one of those people who really likes grass. I love how it feels under my feet. I love to see the kids outside playing games. It brings a cool element when it's hot, but it's also unpopular. So I'm not going to say get rid of lawn, but you might consider reducing the lawn. And of course using appropriate plants, the right plants in the right place. I want to show you, this was my garden when I first took out my lawn. I live in Mission Beach. For Mission Beach, this is really a big garden. It is 10 feet by 10 feet. If you can't quite get the scale of this, 10 feet by 10 feet. Now, my little Bocarnia is right there. Isn't it cute? But the key here is that I use a lava mulch. That is what I chose. I live at the beach. Every time it blows, I have an inch of sand everywhere. Somewhat easier to get off of this. This last storm, I had pine needles, I had twigs. I actually hand-picked them, still not all gone. But nevertheless, this is what it looks like now. About 5 years later, and there's my little carnea right there. It's grown. But there's many different kinds of mulch, and you can use what you want. So irrigating, learning how to irrigate low water plants properly. These plants do not take no water. Anyone who calls the hotline or you see at any of the Ask a Master Gardener events and they say, what I want, you're going to help me. I want a beautiful garden. I want no maintenance, and I want no water. Rocks. Okay. Get rocks. It's not going to happen. You just can't get them. I mean, unless you do plastic, and I guess you could have plastic lawn. I guess that's not so bad if you want green and you want plastic. Okay, and maintenance. I already showed you outside a little bit about how to deal with maintenance. So the benefits of all of this, you know, it's pretty good. What you want to do is to get everything in sync with the kind of plants that you have. Low maintenance, low water, habitat for wildlife. You can't believe how the butterflies and the bees and the hummingbirds love some of these plants, and I'm going to show you. And of course, I happen to like succulents, so I think they're pretty. Some people don't like it. So, oh well. Okay, so how are you going to get rid of the lawn? What I did, because I had 10 feet by 10 feet, is that I took a shovel, and I took my trash cans. The first one I filled it up, I couldn't move it. I removed one trash can to the other trash can. I live at the beach. We do not have green waste removal. They don't, yeah. So anyone who has anything to do with anything in San Diego, get us some green plants down there. So I took out my lawn. I took out about 3 inches. I brought in 1 cubic yard, it's not very much, of DG, decomposed granite, because what you need to have is really well-draining soil. So I mixed the DG with my sand and loam. I did one of those little tests that you all did to find out that I have a very loamy yard, sandy loamy. So I needed to still make it drain better when we get rain. Okay, so physical removal is one. Herbicides, you can certainly use Roundup or one of those kinds of products. Honestly, Roundup is not the worst thing in the world. If it is used properly, you don't spread it out, do it on a windy day, get it on everything that's growing in the neighborhood. It really does just kill the roots. If you are going to use Roundup, make sure you water the lawn really, really well for a couple of weeks, maybe a week, whatever, depending on the weather, so it's really flush and wants to grow, because that's how the Roundup is going to work the best. You can do solarization. Solarization is just simply a method of covering your lawn with like plastic, and you'll get the people who want black plastic and the people who want white plastic, and put rocks around the edge, and within 6 months you should have no lawn. And then you can dig it out. And that's if you have 6 months to do this. Sheet composting, then you can, it's one of a method where you can take newspapers and just put layers of newspapers. Again, I put rocks down, or the newspapers are going to blow away. And again, in 6 months, you will have no lawn. There's a lot of information on this from the Sonoma County Master Gardeners, and that's the reference that I put up there. Okay, a little bit about succulents, what we're going to talk about here. What is a succulent? Anybody?
Fleshy.
Fleshy?
Water, store water.
Okay. Anything else about succulents? Is it a family? Is it a species? Is it a genus?
It's a character.
It is a characteristic. That's all it is. So when people talk about succulents, it is just a horticultural term. And so that's what we're talking about. So there are 30 succulent families. Now, as I was trying to research all of this, 185 genus, and then I find something else that said there were 2,000 genus. Species, I found one site that said there were 100,000 species. I don't know how many there are. I can tell you they cultivate new species and hybridize new things on a daily basis. So it is definitely increasing. Again, on cultivars, I don't even know how many thousands of those that there are. So where do they come from? We have the old world and we have the new world. If you remember, when the whole world was shaped differently, and South America and Africa were pretty much one continent. And then it spread apart. And that was really a long time ago. But so when you think of old world, what you want to really think of is down in Africa, Madagascar, Canary Islands, and those areas. And we're going to see when we go out to our old world succulent garden, you're going to see the euphorbias and the aloes and some crassulas. But lo and behold, you're going to get to new world, and you're going to see crassulas there. You might see some euphorbias there. So there is definitely a mix. But all of the cactus, and the cactus is a genus, all of the cactus are new world. Okay, so here's my definition. A plant with the ability to store water. The water loss is minimized by absent, reduced, cylindrical, spherical leaves. Sometimes the leaves face down like this. They do all kinds of things in order to protect themselves and keep the water inside. Now, little botany, stomata, if you remember, did you do that in your botany class? Those are the little pores that transpire on a plant, and most plants have them on the top of the leaves. Well, the succulents have them on the bottom of the leaves. They stay closed until nighttime, and that's when they're going to open. So one of the differences. Okay. So, waxy, Harry, we're going to point all of these things. You can all point these things out as we take our tour. Point out a waxy leaf. Point out a hairy plant. Point these things out. Look at the ribs that give more space. You'll see the barrel cactus that we have out there. When it rains, it swells up and gets physically bigger. And then as it gets no water, it's going to shrink down again and make the ribs even more noticeable. The barrel cactus also turn themselves to the south, and bend over this way, so that they're shading themselves from the hottest part of the day. A lot of the plants are also shaped so that the water will go down to the soil, either the fog or the rain or any of those kinds of things. And of course, most of them have a very thick skin, some thicker than others, and you'll see some of that. And when we look at the different families and how do you know one plant from the next plant, it's not always how it's going to look, it's the flower. And so I'll show you a couple of flowers. So you'll see some of that as we toss this on here. Okay, a couple different kinds of succulents. Stem succulents. Stem succulents are really, really common. Stem succulent. And it has a little baby. So when people talk about how easy it is to plant a succulent, I'm going to plant the succulent. I now have a new plant. I do not need this at all. If I had left this in the soil and cut it, it may actually make its own little babies. I don't know. But we'll just throw that away, and I now have a new plant. And so those are a stem succulent. The stem is enlarged to contain the water-storing tissues. The stem is the predominant feature of all the little plants that I brought. I think it's really the only real stem one except for this one. They may have non-succulent leaves, deciduous or no leaves. They also may have a caudex. This is a caudex. And the way you do this is that you have this planted like this, and then you pull it out of the soil and bring the soil level like that, and then you bring the soil level down even farther. And what you can see really nicely here is that you have a very sculptural looking root base that is going to hopefully hold lots of water. You can pretty much plant these in any medium at all. This happens to be in some kind of this moss. And I watered this. I watered it last week. It was hot. So I did water that last week. So that could be considered a stem succulent, you know, it has kind of a funky, different kind of stem. You'll see some of these plants will have green stems, which allows for the photosynthesis and for the energy of that particular plant. Okay, more on these succulents. Small, no stems. Many of them are shaped like rosettes. Rosettes. I think that's pretty. So this is considered a leaf succulent. This is a Dudleya. I don't know, is this a stem or is this a leaf? This is going to be a stem? That's going to be considered as a stem? Okay. I kill Dudleyas all the time. Dudleyas do not like water. And there I am at my little beachy house, looking at all these plants, wanting to water them. I probably killed a dozen different kinds of Dudleyas, and I keep telling myself, don't water this, don't water this. And it gets water anyway. So this is in a different place in my house, in my garden, that I hope I don't water it. It wants no summer water. No summer water. There's several of those types, and I manage to kill them all the time. It drives me crazy, but it gives me a challenge in my life to try to grow something that I can't grow so well. Okay, they don't have any spines, but some of them will have very sharp terminal ends. And you're going to see some of those as we go. And if you want to touch them, you're welcome to. If you'd like to walk by them, you can do that too. If you want to rub your arm against them, you can do that too. But I don't think you're going to be particularly happy about that. So those are kind of just some basic types of succulents that you are going to find out there. The first family I'm going to talk about, not family, the first genus I'm going to talk about is the agave. And the agaves tend to be rosette shaped, which is this basic shape. And they can be really, really tiny to really, really gigantic. And the leaves tend to be really stiff, and they tend to have a definite spike on the end, although not all of them. Most of them will have marginal teeth, which means on the edge of each of the leaves there will be little teeth. I don't recommend rubbing your arm against these. Most of them are monocarpic. Who knows what monocarpic means? Yeah, exactly. It's going to die. It's going to bloom and die. Most of them put out little pups. So most of them you think, oh, this is really sad. And then you see that you have, anywhere from 2 to 20 little babies. When we walk, you're going to see in our New World succulent garden, you're going to see a spike that hopefully it was there yesterday. Hopefully it's going to be still there. It's completely dead. But when you have these spikes are big and long and tall and arching and have thousands, if not millions, of flowers. Yes?
This is my one and only question.
I hope I can answer.
I know. I've seen a lot of these in our neighborhoods, and I often wonder if they're cut down prematurely after they've flowered. Do some of those nutrients go back into the babies that are around the plant, or can you take the plant down immediately when it's unsightly?
You probably should. Most people leave it because of the sculpture of the arching.
Right. But after a while, they don't.
Yeah, then you can take the whole thing out. It doesn't need to bring anything back to the root because basically this plant is dead.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, basically this plant is dead, so you can probably do it in time. I thought you could ask, it's going to flower, let's just cut off the flower stalk before it really flowers.
Yeah.
No, that doesn't work either.
Okay, thank you.
When its time has come, its time has come. Now, do you know the common name I have printed up there is a century plant. And a century is how many years? 100. Some of these plants die in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. It's, again, a common name. Century plant. One of the most beautiful of these plants, in my opinion, I get to talk, you get my opinions, is the Agave Americana marginata. And we had one, more than one, way over by the California native garden. And it was probably 10 feet wide, 10 feet tall, with just this beautiful octopus-like sculptural arms of this, of this plant. It was just gorgeous. And it died. And it was very sad. And in our nursery, you can probably buy one in a little, maybe a 4-inch pot. And you think, that is really a pretty little plant. Why don't we just put that right here? Well, make sure you put the right plant in the right place, because this plant will get to be 10 feet by 10 feet. I don't know how long ours lived. It lived there the whole time I've been here. That's only been since 2008. So I don't know how old the plant was. I don't know. Any of you have been here longer? No, Diana? How long that one has been here? No. Okay. Here are some pictures. You can see the spike. It has not opened up. There's the spike. And then what happens is it will arch over like that. And the whole thing is filled with flowers. Little itty bitty flowers. And a gazillion bees. So it's really very pretty. One of the defining features of an agave are the leaf imprints. And I think this is one of the prettiest parts of the agave. People often ask, how can you tell the difference between an aloe and an agave? Because they really do look very similar, except that only the agaves have the leaf imprints, and the agave leaves tend to be thinner. And as we're going to aloes next, I'll show you some of the characteristics of the aloe. Again, some of these have very nasty marginal teeth, and some don't. So they do have a little bit of a look. I think this is a really pretty one. We have one in our gardens. This is an agave agave Victoria Regina. Now we'll go on to aloes. Aloes, again, look very much like the agaves. They are much fleshier. If you ever cut one of the leaves, it'll be very juicy. It will not have the marginal imprints from the leaves. And they're most likely going to bloom for you, and bloom, and bloom, and bloom. And they will bloom every year, typically orange or yellow. They're really pretty. They become aloes very tiny, to 30 feet. There are probably 700 species or more because they keep cultivating more. The rosette shape is common, but the leaves grow from the center rather than unfurl the way an agave is going to. They're not fibrous, they're juicy filled, gel filled. The flower spikes, there should be some in bloom, but the flower spikes are only maybe a foot tall. Some of them are taller than that, with many, many, as in dozens of flowers, unlike the big spike that has tens of thousands of flowers. Most people have heard about aloe vera. How many of you have aloe vera gel, aloe vera lotions, aloe vera shampoo? They stick aloe vera into everything. It's a very nice healing. Great for burns. If you happen to have an aloe vera, you can go and put it on a burn, and it will really help to prevent the blistering. So it's really nice. And here are some aloes. And you can see this is a real typical stand of aloe arborescens. And each year it gets bigger and bigger, puts up more and more flowers. Very pretty. And again, this is a new cultivar that's red. I happen to think this is really wonderful, so we cannot grow that in Southern California. Yeah.
There's a nursery over in Santa Barbara that sells those $40 a plant
Yeah, they're very expensive
for a little.
for a little plant that probably will not grow there. I don't know, maybe it will.
It's his specialty. It's his nursery specializes in those.
And does he guarantee that they're going to grow for you in your yard?
No, he'll
Yeah.
guarantee they'll make it there.
They want the cold. It's one of the ones that wants cold. They don't mind the heat, but they want the cold. And they just don't make it down here because now it gets, maybe if you live up in Julian or someplace where it's really cold, maybe it will live. But in general, I'm not going to send any of you out to buy that particular plant.
What's the name of that one?
I'm sorry, the name?
The name.
So it's spiral.
Poly. It'll come to me sometime. Polyphora, maybe. I may have to look at it if I don't